demonstrative process. Welcome to my little plushie kingdom. Today I will be telling you the ins and outs of how to make one of these little guys. This is called a plushie, and a plushie is just basically a soft little doll. And I've been making plushies only for about 10 months, but I've been sewing since I was about 8 or 9. My grandma and my mom, they taught me the basics, but this last year I've taken a college course and I've expanded it since, and it's really helped along the way. But there are 4 main steps to creating a plushie. The first is to gather all your materials that you need. The materials are the most important part. The second part is making your pattern pieces. Thirdly is assembly, and finally personalizing your plushie. So the first thing you must consider when making a plushie is the materials you want to make out of. The body is the most important part, and your intended recipient is also a major factor that you want to consider. If it's for a toddler, you would want materials that are harder, or not necessarily harder, but more tightly woven, and probably stain resistant would be the best way to go. I use felts. These are 25 cents a piece for 9 by 12 piece, and they come in a multitude of colors. I have maybe 14 different colors here, and there's still over 50 at Hobby Lobby. That's where I get mine from. But you can also buy your felt by the bolt, but it doesn't come in as many colors, but it might be just a little bit thicker. So if you want to find like whatever you want to use for your skin, make it thicker, it'll last longer, and it'd be less likely to pill. But what also goes into your plushie is very important too. That also depends on your intended recipient, because age, allergies, and well, the density of the packing depends on what you want to use. Age-wise, it matters because there's a filling. It's those little pellet things, and those can, if the seam rips or tears and those get out, little children can get into them and swallow them, and it's a bad choking hazard. What I use is just a regular polyester fiber fill. It's the most generic kind you can get, but I like it because even though I wouldn't recommend washing it in the plushies, if you ever need to, you can take it out of the plushies and wash your doll. But you can also, there's also differences, like some can bounce back more and some are more organic, but allergies can also take effect because some people are allergic to the polyester stuff and some people are allergic to the cotton stuff. So it'll all depend on what you need to use. And the last thing you need to consider is the type of thread you'll want. I wouldn't recommend using anything that's not on a spool because one, if you're using a machine, you're going to need a spool anyways. And the stuff like the jewelry thread, you can find it in clear, but it's not as strong, or it just won't bend as well as you want it to. And I just find it's just horrible to work with. And okay, so once you've got your thread, your fabric, and your filling, it's time to assemble. Well, actually, my bad. You have to first choose your pattern. Patterns can come, you can find them online, they're free, or you can buy them in books, or I make my own. I start out with just plain old paper. You can do anything you want. Mine began out as random pieces of paper taped together, and eventually, once I find a pattern that works, I move it to cardboard. And this is the back of my mother's cereal box. It works, and it helps keep consistency throughout your plushies. Because I just used the bottom of the 32-ounce Gatorade bottle for the head size, and then I just had to toy around with the body and the arms to find out what worked for me. But the way I made mine, after I found out the head size, this took me 5 hours to create this body size, and I went through so much trial and error. I went through different arm lengths, but I found out it's just easier to remove the arms and attach them later because it saves the most fabric. But once you get your pattern pieces and your things cut out, it's time to decide whether you want to do machine sewing or hand sewing. Now, you might think people who hand sew are a bit insane, but I like to make these by hand. I just feel more accomplished when I do. But lately I found out that machine stitching for the body, it just makes the process go a lot faster. But with machine, there's disadvantages with the machine because I can't get as close to the edge as I want, which makes a smaller doll, which kind of messes with my patterns. But it's a lot thicker and, well, it's not a lot thicker, but it locks better, and so I don't have to worry as much about things falling apart. But with hand sewing, even though it takes longer, I like it because it gets closer to the edge and I feel like I can secure things down better, but that's just my opinion. But now that you've got your pieces together, with my pattern, I have 2 head pieces, 4 arm pieces, and 2 body pieces. First thing I'll do is also the head piece together, just make a little circle around, and then with the bottom, I leave a gap open with the neck, so I can, this is going to be one continuous fill throughout the body, because if it's closed off and just go back and forth, that doesn't do anyone any good. And so, I also, the next thing I do is I attach the arms, but before I attach the arms, I like to cut off little triangles off the side before I connect them, because I found that the shoulders, they tend to stretch when I'm sewing them together, so I just clip them together a little more and it rounds them out. Makes it nicer. But then, once those 2 are together, you want to put the 2 flat sides together and then sew them. And then, before you turn them inside out, I'd recommend poking it with a pencil just to make sure things get all sewed together, because with the sewing machine, it doesn't catch all the edges as well, because this is felt. Felt doesn't have a grain, it's just compacted fibers all punched together with needles, so it doesn't have as much of a grip if you would with woven fabric, so just be aware of that. And so, but I do hand stitch all my heads together because it's just, there's no way you can do it with the machine. It's just too close together, and once you do, even if you do one side, you still have to hand stitch the other side together. I just used a simple blanket stitch because I find that's easier to do, but you can go online and find any other type of stitch that you want. There's a repair stitch out there that works really well, but I haven't mastered that yet. But once you've got the blank body of your plushie, wow, this isn't blank, you can start to personalize it like I have with this. This is actually going to be for my friend, and she wanted Eugene from Rapunzel, and so I started out making his clothes, and with the clothes tend to be one of the most difficult things to do because you've got to decide whether you want it removable or not. Diana's here, her clothes aren't removable, and I just hot glued them on. They're not as clean cut as the removable ones are, but it gets the job done. And if there's no reason for your recipient to remove the clothes, then there's no real reason for you to make removable clothing. But personalizing plushies, this is another reason I also like felt. It's because with felt, you can have long, wavy hair, you can have short, spiky hair. You can do almost anything with felt. You just have to cut it the right way. Now, the one thing I didn't mention beforehand with supplies is a hot glue gun. I use hot glue guns for the clothes, the hair, definitely, because I will not sew on all those strands. But with the hot glue gun, you want to use low temperature, because even though the high temperature hot glue gun doesn't necessarily burn the felt, you can smell it singeing it, and that lingers on the doll, and it's just not a pleasant smell. Usually I'll do the hair first, but after the hair and the clothes are done, I do the eyes. The eyes, I make little round felt this color because I like embroidering my eyes on, because even you could go the easy way and just cut out colored pieces of felt and glue them on, but I find that looks terrifyingly creepy. And so I hot glue on the little eyes so they stay in place, and then I go round and round until they fill out. Excuse me. can also do accessories. Accessories include hats. I made a little sock monkey hat for little Misha here. My mom just adores him. But you can also do things like jewelry, or I've started making wings for my angel ones. It takes time, but it really is fun to do. It just takes a little imagination, but you can do almost anything with these plushies. And that's all it really takes, is some material of your choice, a pattern you either bought or the one you made up. Assemble your little minion and dress them up however you want, and soon you too can have your own little plushie kingdom.